today. We're going to go ahead and get started. If you are sitting far away and you wish you were sitting closer, but you were being kind and generous souls, please feel free to come closer to us. My name is Lily Wolf. I'm the New Works Associate at Chautauqua Theatre Company, and I'm joined today by our Producing Artistic Director, J.T. Carroll, our dramaturg for Best for Baby, Liz Frankel, and we'll be joined in just a moment by Sharon Rothstein, the playwright. I'll do some spieling while Sharon's on her way over. But I just wanted to extend, firstly, my heartfelt thanks to the Chautauqua Women's Club and to Kellyanne Boyce, who said hello and then I think busily had to rush off somewhere. But it means so much to be welcomed to the Women's Club, to share our theater chat with you all, and especially this one. I truly woke up filled with excitement to be here and to have this conversation here in this space. So thank you for joining us. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's been going on in the theater company, and if you want to jump in with anything as well. We've had a sort of unprecedentedly busy season. It is so exciting. We're doing so much. We've already done one new play workshop. Ahoy hoy, thank you to everybody who came out to support that new play. And we've had our first new play lab, which are new play workshops that happen up and on their feet, staged with design by our design fellows and our directing fellows and our brand new playwriting fellows. It is super exciting, and there's another one that is coming up currently in rehearsals. So in a couple of weeks' time, you'll be able to see that. And then if you missed the Bone Wars, our first new play lab, and you're dying to come back and catch it, you can do so on August 1st. But I would recommend getting your ticket for that. We are also doing tours. If you haven't been up to Row Green yet, well, first of all, get a ticket and come on up. But also, tours are being offered at 10 a.m. every Tuesday, led by Emily Glinick, our managing director, and sometimes even Jade too. So come up and visit us in any of those capacities. And then the reason we're all here today is to talk about Best for Baby. That show is in tech right now. We've stolen the playwright, we've stolen the dramaturg away from tech rehearsals, and we go into previews this weekend. We are doing a special Women's Club performance on the 21st. You've got flyers here, and I know many of you have already got your tickets to that, so we thank you, and we look forward to sharing the art with you. And now we'll just talk about the art a little bit. So I want to share a little bit more about the folks that we have, our featured speakers today. Playwright Sharon Rothstein. Sharon is an award-winning playwright and television writer. Best for Baby is her newest play, but her second newest play, Bad Books, is a National New Play Network Rolling World premiere play and winner of the David Goldman Prize for New American Plays. Sharon's won a lot of prizes. I'll tell you about just a few of them. Sharon's Helen Hayes Award-nominated musical adaptation of the beloved film Hester Street, with music and lyrics by Joel Wagner, was produced at Washington, D.C.'s Theater J in spring of 2024. Also directed by Oliver Butler, who is the director of Best for Baby here at CTC. Her play By the Water was first produced by Manhattan Theatre Club and Ars Nova, and was a recipient of the American Theatre Critics Association Francesca Primus Prize. It's also for sale at the Row Green Theatre Center and at the bookstore if you want to give that one a read. Her plays have also been produced at Williamstown Theatre Festival, Arena Stage, McCarter Theatre, Ensemble Studio Theatre, and her audio drama Deep Fake is available on Audible, so give that one a listen for your drives back home. She's currently a writer and co-executive producer on CBS's new show Einstein. She's also written for Suits LA, the spin-off of the hit legal drama Suits, for which she wrote and produced 5 seasons. Sharon was a writer and co-executive producer on AMC's Orphan Black Echoes, and has developed shows for Apple, AMC, and Bravo. That's a lot of work. I feel tired just thinking about it. She holds an MFA in dramatic writing from NYU Tisch and has a master's degree in public health from Hunter College. She teaches television writing at NYU and Columbia University. She lives in Brooklyn with her husband, 2 kids, 2 cats, and a mountain of laundry. Liz Frankel, our dramaturg, and we'll talk more about what that means, and I know many of you already know what that means. This is Liz's 3rd season with CTC, which shouldn't be hard for me to remember because it's the same for us. Liz was first here as dramaturg on Falcon Girls and New Play Workshop in 2024, and then came here for the New Play Workshop of Best for Baby as the dramaturg last year, and now we're doing the whole shebang, and she's back with us for that process. Liz is currently the artistic director of the Terrence McNally Festival, which is launching in Austin next year. Is it next year? Yes. Liz Franco spent nearly a decade as the director of new work at Houston's Alley Theater, where we worked together, where she founded its Alley All New Festival. Liz moved to Houston after 9 years at the New York's Public Theater, where she helped to start the emerging writers group there. Before joining the Public, Liz worked at Waxman Williams Entertainment, Miramax Films, and Manhattan Theater Club. Freelance dramaturgy assignments have taken Liz to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, Williamstown Theater Festival, the Colorado New Play Summit, the Ojai Playwrights Conference, Playwrights Center, and the Eugene O'Neill Theater Center. With Austin's Texas Performing Arts, she's worked as an advisor, sourcing projects for its expanding new work development program, and as a dramaturg, guiding multiple musician-driven projects, it is Austin, Texas after all, into world premiere story-centered productions. She's also excited to be producing a short film this summer and is trying her fundraising, I know right now, for that. She has a BA from Colby College, and many of you will know very well Jade King Carroll, our producing artistic director, and we're here today to talk about commissions and the commissioning process and this incredible play that is a CTC commission and world premiere. And so I would actually love to start there, Jade, as somebody who is true, like you have taken the commissioning process here at CTC just to the next level. Can you share a little bit about your vision for CTC commissioned plays, why that's important to you, and how we do it here at CTC?
Absolutely. We weren't commissioning plays at CTC before, so it's not another level. It's a new level. CTC has done 20 years of doing new play workshops, where we bring people in. The artistic directors would call their other artistic director friends and say, what do you have in development? How can we help develop that? We've got a week slot. We're a 42-hour ERDO workshop, and some conservatory actors. We can bring in equity actors. So we're in our 21st year of developing new works. But we weren't doing it in a way where, all new work development is important. We are still doing that. We've doubled down on that. But commissioning is a little bit different, because when you commission a play, you go to a writer and you say, is there something you want to work on? Or tell me an idea I would love to support from the seed, from the kernel of an idea. How can this theater support this particular project in this playwright? And then you come up with a contract and you give them a runway. We decided to do 3 years, just because I notice sometimes a lot of theaters that are lucky enough to still give a lot of commissions, they'll hedge their bets and give out 10 commissions. We don't have the money to do that. And on an 18-month contract, and just kind of let them go, and that works well, and that's beautiful. But I said, okay, well, we can really only afford to do one. We barely can do that. Sharon's here because of the NYSCA grant that actually paid for the commission, New York State Council on the Arts, which gave us $10,000, and we said, okay, we're going to give this to Sharon and say in 3 years. So for the first year, I would love for you to come, be in Chautauqua for a week, write, rest, relax, absorb, do what you need, your thinking space. If you want some actors, we've got some conservatory actors, you can hear some new pages, but not an assignment. Sharon, of course, had a full draft and wanted a full equity workshop that first year. And then in the second year, some of you might have seen, did anybody see the new play workshop with Best Your Baby last year? So that was Sharon's second summer with us. And then before we commit, when you have a commission, you have the rights to produce it. So after a certain amount of time in our second year, we had it, so within 6 months or 3 months of seeing that new play workshop, Chautauqua has to decide if we're going to produce it or not. And then we have the rights, because we've commissioned it to get the world premiere rights. So in perpetuity, whenever you see this play, if you go see it and it's at CTG, you'll open up the program and it'll say originally commissioned by Chautauqua Theater Company. And if we produce it, it says originally commissioned and the world premiere at Chautauqua Theater Company. When it goes into print, We did the world premiere of Tiny Father, which wasn't even our commission, but when the Geffen did it, not only were we in the program, not only are we in the published version, but when anybody does it, we get a little bit of percentage of that money. So it's an investment in the artist, it's an investment in the play, and it's an investment in Chautauqua that we're making towards new plays. And I wanted to give it the breadth of 3 years, so we could really be in dialogue with the play, and the playwright could really be in dialogue with our audience. So that's a long answer, but happy to fill in any questions.
Wonderful, thank you. And I wanted to invite Liz, because you, in your capacity at organizations previously, have run commissioning programs. Is there anything you want to add to that about what this commissioning program looks like from the outside?
Yes, this is for you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's such a great model and so ideal, because so often, in my experience with working at theaters, that run year round, but I think what's so great about this, and actually the advantage of the fact that Chautauqua doesn't run year round, is that something can happen each summer. So often a theater might commission a writer, and especially if it's a busy writer like Sharon who has other commitments, it's easy for the writer's like, oh yes, I'm going to write it, I'm going to get to it, but then the TV job comes up, and then this other play is being produced, and then nothing really, and then at the theater you're waiting for years. And here I think just the gift is saying to the writer, come up for this 1 week, and they're going to focus on it for that 1 week, and it gets the ball rolling, and then being able to say, come have a reading, to know there's a reading slot. So many theaters might be like, oh, you need a reading, we have to figure out how to do a reading, when can we do a reading, but here it's already built in, so that just gets it going. And then of course now then you can produce it on the third summer, but it seems like such an ideal amount of time to develop a play, and the fact that there's a built-in schedule because it's a summer theater, it just seems ideal in a way that oddly, like in theory a year-round theater could do that, but it somehow just doesn't happen. So I just think it's a fantastic model, and so great that Chautauqua is using what it has as an advantage to produce to commission and then produce the new plays. Thank you for that. And okay, Sharon, woman of the hour, finally to you. I'm curious to hear if there's anything you want to share about what commissions mean to you as the recipient of them. How do they enrich? What are the challenges? And then can you tell us what that kernel was for this commission that we're talking about today?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. And also, I hadn't been in this building yet, and it's gorgeous. Thinking about how my kids could ruin everything in here very quickly. We won't let them in. To speak about the commissioning process, I mean, I've said this before, I will say it till the day I die. Jade and Emily, the managing director, showed incredible bravery because when they came to me and said, we're interested in commissioning you, do you have an idea? I said, I do have an idea. It's a really, really big idea. And there are a lot of theaters and artistic directors who would say, well, it was nice meeting you, and walk away. And instead, they clearly something about the idea itself was really interesting and I think felt important to them. And they had enough faith in both me and in Chautauqua to say, we want to support you and this big idea, and that's incredible. Also, the play is not shy about things it says, which in this moment with arts funding is really tricky. I had arts funding taken away about my play about book banning. So we're in a very delicate moment, and their faith in me and in the play is incredible, and it allowed me to write with abandon, to do the research I needed to do. This play took a huge amount of research. I'm incredibly lucky that I have an amazing, brilliant dramaturg who can help me with it, but that takes time, and resources. So this commissioning process specifically was a godsend. And then kind of more generally, I think that probably many people in this room, you do better work when you got a deadline, So commission is just a helpful thing to say that play, we actually want that play at a certain point, like get cracking. And then also, especially when we've seen so many theaters of all sizes close over the past, I think, 5 years, to know that a theater is invested in you and in the play, and therefore you don't have a guarantee that the play is going to be produced, but you have a much higher likelihood of it, that in and of itself is a gift. So that's about commissioning. The play, for those of you who don't know, is about the Johnson & Johnson baby powder talc litigation. And I was happened to be reading an issue of the New Yorker, and there was an article about the litigation. And I had been, I have a master's in public health. I don't use it very much, but I've always been very interested in issues of public health. I had been kind of following the talc litigation a little bit, but I didn't realize till I had read that article what an epic story it was. One that goes back to the 1960s and 70s when Johnson & Johnson was first made aware that there was asbestos in their baby powder, and all of the machinations that they underwent in order to keep selling it over decades and decades and decades. And it really is a story that reads like big tobacco. And so I, as someone who wrote legal drama for 5 years on television, I love a good scene of lawyers being, nasty. So on the one hand, it really appealed to that part of my brain, but then the other part that has to engage for me to want to write a play is the hard part. And so the notion that there are generations of women, including in my own family, who have used and relied on Johnson & Johnson baby powder, and what it means and says about our relationship to our bodies and our health and the healthcare system, was really fascinating to me, and heartbreaking. And so when these two kind of strands came together, I knew I wanted to write that play.
I'm so glad that you did. Liz, can you give us your brilliance and your absolute necessity has been made clear by Sharon, but can you give us a little bit of, to those who might, the term dramaturg or dramaturgy might be new, can you give us a little bit of context around new play dramaturgy? What is that? What does it mean, generally? And then specifically, how have you worked with Sharon on this project? You want to say a little bit?
Yeah, so in general, as a new play dramaturg, I think my role is to work very closely with the playwright and first understand what story they're excited about, what they want to convey to the audience, and then be a partner to them in looking at the story. So, just from potentially asking questions of why does the character say that, or what do you want the audience to take away, or perhaps reflecting, you've told me that you want the audience to think this from this scene, but I don't know if it fully conveys it, and just trying to ask questions and offer feedback to make sure that what is being presented matches their ideal vision of what they want to share. And I think it's so easy for a writer who knows everything and could potentially write a 10-hour version of a story, as they cut effectively from what's in their brain to what's on the page. I think we all feel this way. It's easy for things to be lost or for something that's clear to the writer not to be clear to the audience. So I sort of think of myself as a partner, but also a vocal, very thoughtful audience member. And so for this play, there's been a lot of just general conversation, but then something I've done, this play has a lot, the scenes are set in various different time periods with different characters, so I've made a chart that we, especially me, have used a lot of okay, scene 1 is this set in this time period, the characters are this ages, scene 2, this year, this ages, and on, which is just useful to track what's going on and make sure all the logic works. And then this play has been an unusual process for me because it involves, there's so much background information with the talc litigation and regulation and rules and laws and dates. So I've done a lot of research just to sort of provide information to the cast and the team and to give background information to Sharon. And a lot of times when I work on new plays, that isn't necessary either, just because it's a play about a family. There's not all this research to do, or it might be the writer's own lived experience, so they don't need me to research something that is the story of their childhood or something. But in this case, it just stemmed from Sharon reading an article. It's not her lived experience or expertise. So we've really been doing a lot of research together, and there'll be a lot of information in the playbill when you get there, so you can, so there's also part of it is educating the audience. Not that you need to come in knowing things, but I like for non-use members, like, that's fascinating, tell me more. Then the playbill's a tool for that. You don't have to start Googling on your own. This one is for all of you. The tagline of this play is a very funny tragedy. Can you tell us more about that? What is unique about this play's form and delivery, and how does that help to land this message?
Sure. Well, Sharon, who used to work in Broadway advertising, came up with the tagline, so Chautauqua can't take credit for that. But you also said something interesting, I think in a roundtable, which are the conversations we have with the conservatory, that you kind of want to know what the poster looks like. You kind of want to know how to advertise something as you're creating it, right? Which I just think is funny and want to lift up as we talk about a very funny tragedy. What Sharon has done is extremely theatrical. I think there's a lift and a humor and a style to which the play is contained, and our very unreliable, fun, devilishly fun narrator brings us on this ride. And at the core of it, there's a really heartbreaking, tragic, intimate, human story. And there's a lot of information about, that we go from 1971 to 2026, and then all of the legalese. So I think to hear all of the legalese and to be able to take all of the tragedy and the human storytelling and the sickness that was wrought by kind of some evil in it, you need that humor. And you need, I think, just from a producer, I don't know that it's a story that I delight in the storytelling of it, so I can actually hear the emotional and the facts that are in it. Yeah, is that a good answer?
Come and see it. Sharon, what do you hope that audiences will take away from this play in particular? And then I'm also curious to hear from you.
Yeah, well, I was having a really delightful lunch with Joan right before, and I was saying this, I've now been working on the play for many years, and I've been deep in the research for many years, and something that continuously surprises me is how many very smart, very well-educated women I meet who only glancingly know about this litigation and what it means, or maybe don't know about it at all. I don't necessarily think the point of theater is to educate. I think it is to move you and inspire you and make you connect with the story and the people around you. But I do think some education will probably go on, and I think that's valuable. Not just about the talc and the kind of asbestos, but also about some of these bankruptcy maneuvers the company has been trying. And I know that sounds really boring, but I promise you, it's fun. We like bankruptcy fun. The second time. So, I do think there's just some, especially for a Chautauqua crowd, which I'm always amazed when I go to lectures and I see people taking notes. I love it. And I think, there are very few places left in America, I think, where people are that engaged. So I think the Chautauqua crowd will probably enjoy the facts of it, the history, and then mostly I hope you are deeply moved. And I have one of the best casts I've ever worked with, led by Brian Owen and Crystal Dickinson, who essentially guts me every single time I watch her on stage. I hope that you go and you feel like, this is sounding corny, but feel like that was a Because it's big. It is big, and I have nothing against smaller plays. I've written many of them, but this one I really wrote with wanting to give you that experience of feeling like I am in kind of like an epic theatrical encounter, and that's why it spans so much time and so many characters and so many styles, and yet I hope never loses sight of the heart. That's my hope.
I also, just what you said, a dovetail on, it's a very American story. One of the plays that, not at all in tone or even topic or anything, but just in, like I think of like Angels in America, just this, an epic story of American life and style. And I was excited about that, and also about, it's America's 250th. The whole season, I think, is looking at different aspects of what it is to be American, and I think this play anchors that in our season.
So we're eager now to hear from you and what you want to know. I'm going to come out here with my microphone, and I know it's an intimate space, but I'm going to come to you and let's hear your questions.
Sharon, this is for you. In your wildest dreams, what happens with this work of art?
I'm such a superstitious person, so I'm just gonna. I mean, in my wildest dreams, I would love to see this on a big stage in New York and in London. Some of you probably know this. The Johnson & Johnson litigation is now, I think, like the biggest consumer protection case in British history too.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it truly is. This is a very American story, as Jade said, and it's kind of because of our regulations and our FDA and our politics that the scandal starts here. But Johnson & Johnson baby powder is sold all over the world, right? So it truly is an international story too. So I would love for it to be done in New York, not just New York. Like, I'd love for it to be done everywhere. One of the best things that has ever happened to me is that my play Bad Books has been done all over the country over the past couple of years, and I have met the most incredible, life-affirming theater people and theater fans all over the country. They have in a time of a lot of political turbulence, they have sparked my soul, to be honest, because they want to tell good stories and important stories and bring people together in a moment where, as we all know, that's hard. So happy for it to be everywhere. That said, it's a big play. And so there's going to be some difficulty in doing that, and usually when a play gets a really nice, juicy New York production, that gives it it gives it a lot of what it needs to move around. So yeah, I would love for it to do, and then I've also, there's a TV show in it. I don't know. We'll see. This is one of those things where I keep telling my agents that makes them interested.
This is for Sharon. I have a ton of appreciation for the notion that the commission gives you structure and deadlines so that you have to get things done when they're done. I have a two-part question. One is, between when you get the seat of the premiere, you have these two other Chautauqua experiences. What is going on in between that? Are you workshopping at every other places too? How much work is being done? And the other question is, when you get to world premiere, is it done?
I thought you were going to say, are you drunk?
Well, I don't know the answer to that.
So, great questions. The first question, no, in this case, only Chautauqua workshopped it, which was beyond a gift. We did a workshop in New York as well in the
And the Dramatists Guild Foundation in the winter, which
Yeah.
we partnered with, they give us free community space. Susan Lobach and Ro Green are on their board. Andrew Lipa is the president. He was here talking to the conservatory. So we've worked out So all of our commissions, the year between the NPW and the world premiere, if we're gonna do it, we do a reading in New York at the Drama Center Foundation.
Yeah, which was incredible.
At no cost to us, except for the actors, but no like space cost.
Which was really, really helpful to get it, rehearsal ready. Then the other work I'm doing is I'm constantly rewriting. I'm so fortunate to have the brilliance of Liz to help me. Sometimes it's a little question. Sometimes it's about a line. Does this line make sense? You know what I mean? And then sometimes it's deeper questions about structure, especially, the second act. I've changed a lot of things structurally leading up to this point, and that's been with the enormous help of Liz, Jade, my cast. My cast is brilliant. They've given me incredible insight, and Oliver, my director. And I'm a big believer in that it's never done. So, especially a play like this, which really needs the audience to be complete. I mean, every play is that way to a certain extent. This play, I think, more than others. So, yeah, and I sit there in previews, stress eating and listening. Talkbacks are okay. Sometimes talkbacks are helpful. Sometimes they're not. Everybody has their own opinion, right? So sometimes you get someone who has one opinion, and then you will literally have someone raise their hand and give the other opinion. But when you're in the back of the theater, watching the entire crowd, that opinion always counts. Did the joke land? Do they seem moved? So throughout previews, I am rewriting, recalibrating until someone comes and says, "Give me that bag of M&Ms and the pen."
And the pen.
And the pen. Yes.
I have a question for, I guess for Liz. Just to stretch the metaphor for a second, because this play was born here in Chautauqua, it is our baby. And like all of our children, we're very protective of it. So I wanted to ask Liz, we've been talking about this week. Some of you heard on stage at the AMP, the filmmaker Scott Hamilton Kennedy made a blanket statement. There was no evidence that Johnson & Johnson, the child causes cancer. And off he went on to something else. And because we don't want people going into this play with that question, because a couple of people have already said to me I heard that's not true, the whole thing with Johnson. Can you briefly let folks know that what evidence there is that Johnson & Johnson's products have been harmful, so that question isn't walking into the theater with them?
Sure, yeah, please help me and jump in. But there's so much evidence. Let's see, really answer. The World Health Organization has classified talc, which is up until 2022 was a key ingredient in the baby powder, as a carcinogen, because talc is mined. Basically, you can't mine talc without having asbestos quite likely to be in it, because talc and asbestos are found in all the same mines. They're like two ingredients that go together. So there's no way to say, oh no, this talc has no asbestos in it. Maybe that could be the case in one tiny instance of it, but on the whole, when you're selling a product, that can't be true. And so much evidence has come up from various scientific studies over the years that has been entered into evidence in court in all of these lawsuits that there is a link. I think what's complicated is there, of course, are many people who get ovarian cancer who have not used baby powder or do not have ovarian cancer because of talc at all. And so it's true that with any one person, unless you've identified talc in the tumor, which they can literally do, but with any one person who has cancer, you can't necessarily say, here's why you have cancer and here's why you have cancer. And that's what Johnson & Johnson is using to say, we can't know why all these people have cancer. And yet there are so many women who have used baby powder who have cancer. And also there's so many scientific studies pointing to the high likelihood of these things being linked because the talc has asbestos in it. And what's interesting is the other kind of cancer that comes from using talc is mesothelioma, which is a lung cancer you get from asbestos. The only way to get that is asbestos exposure. So if someone has that, they've been exposed to asbestos. And if it's someone who has been working in construction, then that's obviously the link. But if it's someone who's never worked in construction and their only exposure is lots of baby powder, then you kind of know it's from that. And in those cases, it seems like the people who sue for baby powder and their mesothelioma, they always win. It's a little different with the ovarian cancer because, of course, there are other reasons why you might have it. And yet there is very much a link a scientific link between the two, which, of course, Johnson & Johnson has invested heavily in trying to say, no, there's not a link.
And I will, that's all great, and I will just add, especially because we are in the Women's Club, I do not think it is a coincidence that women were not listened to for so very long in this particular case. And there have been men who have also developed testicular cancer. There are men who are part of these lawsuits too, but they are overwhelmingly women. Women who use this baby powder, to keep themselves feeling dry, who kept their diaphragms in it for years and years and years and years and years, right? I mean, many of us, our parents started using baby powder on us the minute we were born. So you think about those multiple years of exposure, right? And I wasn't at the lecture, I just saw a clip of it after. But what he seemed to be suggesting was that there was no direct scientific evidence that talc itself is a carcinogen. And I've spoken to cancer experts and people at the FDA about this, and that part is maybe still debatable, kind of depends on where you are and what your scientific outlook is. But what is not debatable is that asbestos causes cancer. So if asbestos is in the talc, that is what is causing cancer. And Johnson & Johnson has done a masterful job of obscuring that so that someone like that gentleman can get on stage and say, talc doesn't cause cancer, as if that is wholly separate from asbestos, which, as Liz just said, it's not.
Thank you.
Question for Sharon. Could you talk a bit about the process of taking a story about women not being listened to and people dying of cancer and corporate malfeasance and make that at least partially into a comedy?
Yeah, from the very beginning when I started thinking about this play, I've long been fascinated by how we in this country, especially since Citizens United, we kind of legally equate corporations with people. But of course, people can't, corporations can't lose things in an emotional way, But then I just thought, it's a metaphor that's really ripe for plucking. And so my narrator, the narrator that Jade was referring to, is the human embodiment of Johnson & Johnson. We first meet him, he's a grown man in a diaper. He wears a diaper the entire play. And he's a baby. He's just a big baby. And sometimes that's incredibly charming and cute and funny, and sometimes it's all the things babies are, maddening and frustrating, and he's constantly helpless, and needs the people around him to fix things for him, in the same way that a corporation does. And because I've been gifted with a brilliant comic actor, he's really funny. He's really, really funny. The play in general is not necessarily just satire, but it is satire. And so there's a lot of, that kind of painful, bittersweet laughter at our institutions and our laws and our culture that has allowed us to baby these corporations that way. And sometimes when you put that on stage in the form of an actual man-sized baby, it's not without its bitterness, but it is funny. It is also funny. And then the other thing is, as is probably true for every character I've ever written, my more human characters, they are people who have a sense of humor. That's how they get through the trials and tribulations of their life, because it's how I get through mine and how my family functions. functions. So even in scenes where it's not about the baby, where it's just about women and families and friendship and motherhood, there is the humor and comedy of life in there. And again, I have these beautiful actors who are really able to deliver on that. Thank you. That's a great question.
So two very patient question askers here I'm going to get to.
You have the opportunity to work with the dramaturg. How many playwrights do, and how did this happen? That, and I don't want to be crass to say, but who pays?
Yeah.
Did Chautauqua put this together?
Yeah, it's part of the commissioning. I think part of the producing responsibilities when working on a new play are kind of looking at what the play needs or wants. And that first summer, I remember the first summer the dramaturg that worked on it, brilliant artistic friend, couldn't come. She zoomed in, and now she's running a New York theater. Liz was already here that summer. Liz is one of my favorite theater brains there is, and somebody who I was already calling before we could afford to bring Lily in. We got Lily because of Liz. I was going, what plays do I need to read? What, you know what I mean? I got this job. Liz, send me some plays. And I just love the way she works with playwrights in a way where she meets the play. There's not like a Liz agenda or like I'm gonna put Liz on this project because this is what she does well. It's like really listening to the playwright and the play. So I think I made this pairing. But as far as like putting a dramaturg on, not every playwright wants one, but if you're commissioning a play, I think it's as a producer, it's your responsibility to at least ask if that's something, especially a play like this.
And I will just add, as someone who's been lucky enough to do quite a bit of work in television, in Hollywood, nothing is about what you as a writer want to say. If you manage to get what you want to say onto the screen, like, wow, I'm really impressed because there's so many bosses and so many voices and so many metrics you have to hit. And it's still, I love writing television, it's wildly fun. And it's a lot better than theater. But I will always return to theater because I get to say the thing I want to say and explore what I want to explore. And a great dramaturg, and Liz is one of the best, they just help you, as you were saying, they help you say the thing you wanted to say more clearly. And that is like such an exquisite gift to have as a writer.
I just wanted to say that as a physician in medicine, we have very few things that are cause and effect show proven. We have mostly correlations, and I always tell my patients that these correlate with each other, but they're not necessarily proven. And just looking at some of the stuff about the Johnson & Johnson litigation, most of the studies are what we call longitudinal cohort studies, and depend on people remembering and reporting that they in fact used talc, and now they have cancer. And then taking a group of people who don't have cancer and looking at those people in terms of their longitudinal studies. The nurses study and the sisters study. There are many, many, many studies that look back over time and depended on people reporting correctly and then where they are now. But that doesn't necessarily prove cause. So I think that's the clarification I wanted to make. Linking something or correlating something is a totally different thing from cause and effect.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think part of what was so galling to me when I was doing the research is Johnson & Johnson knew from a very early stage in this that there was a significant risk or a significant correlation and could have changed the formula at any point to cornstarch and didn't. So, and there's that when you look at all the things that have come out in court, all their memos, all their internal memos about it, all of their lobbying of the FDA, it tells like this other side of, it tells the corporate side of the story.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, that they have evaded and they have actually taken the baby powder and put it into a different corporation to take away the Johnson & Johnson label on it. So there's no question that in a capitalistic society, corporations are going to evade whatever people bring up against them. And I also think it's true that this is also a women's issue because it mainly affects women.
Thank you all so much. We hope to see you at the play. Come to the Women's Performance on 23rd.